After my video about the rise and fall of Chamber that actually did pretty good, a lot of you put in motion a lot of discussion. But here's the thing. I was able to play the new Chamber as well as the Pearl. Obviously, they're live. They should be live for everyone by today. And yes, that was a terrible death you saw in the background as I'm still getting used to the new Pearl map, but I digress. You're not going to be seeing Radiant gameplay. It's just me. I'm not very good at the game. But still, I can't make discussion videos or commentary videos without getting hands-on, right? Without actually playing. I got to play. I got to see the high elos perspectives. I got to do a little bit of research, and then I can open a good discussion. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. After the rise and fall of Chamber and his play rate completely dying out, did Riot officially overbuff him, or was it just enough to throw him a lifeline and bring him back into the game? Let's get started. So the first thing I want to note is when I was actually playing Chambers in my games, I just did a bunch of Swift plays, again, just to get mainly the feel of these buffs. And he definitely felt better, but it didn't feel too substantial. That's the first thing I wanted to say. A lot of people were very scared of Chamber actually receiving these buffs, and then people were skeptical when they saw the numbers. Will this be enough, and what will it do? Well, let me at least be first to say he at least feels better in the sense that the gameplay itself feels a little smoother. Especially that 15% increase to his ultimate just makes him feel a little bit more usable. Now, is he meta? I don't think so. But again, if I'm just a plat player, who am I to say? So I talked to Radiance on my Discord. I have a couple hundred, making me a little bit lucky in that sense. But I also asked Dope.TV as well as Flow, sending both high-ranking players way more qualified than I am to actually give you an answer. Now, I was able to clip it since they were both live. Check them out using the link below. Here are their answers, and what I like is that they were both very similar.
Thoughts on Chamber buff? Wondering what high-rank players are thinking. The Chamber buff, it's good. He's definitely going to be able to play it on certain maps like Haven, probably more useful on Icebox again, stuff like that. Overall, is it meta changing? I wouldn't say so. I still think playing Killjoy is probably the best out of all Sentinels.
High thoughts on Chamber buff. Wondering high ranked players' thoughts. It's kind of meh. I think the thing that makes Chamber good before was that his two TPs are separated. So if the TP isn't changed to either increase range or I don't know. They have to change the TP for Chamber to be good, in my opinion. I think he's still good on certain maps like Lotus and Pearl. He's playable. But I think I'd rather see Killjoy or Cypher on every other map.
All right, so what I got from my Radiance as well as talking to these two, or letting them talk, I didn't really talk to them, I just asked them on Twitch chat and they answered, is that, yeah, Chamber still isn't that great. And I really like Dopai's input, specifically as he mentions the TP being the original reason that made him strong. And that makes sense. It's because Chamber had that versatility. He had a little bit of that Sentinel, but he could also play a lot like a duelist. Get a pop and get out. And that weakened teleport was one of his biggest hits. I would say the second biggest hit was actually the slowdown in the rate of fire, especially on his ultimate. That was luckily buffed and does help right now. That was probably one of the better buffs in the overall patch notes. With all that being said, if he needs some sort of substantial move or some substantial work on the teleport to actually make him usable, will Riot ever consider that? Or will they move in a different direction to double down on his Sentinel-like gameplay instead of giving him a buff to his teleport, which would kind of double down on the duelist-like gameplay? But in the end, they gave my man a ton of guns, so making him a pure Sentinel is always going to be an uphill battle. Furthermore, since he is still that Sentinel role, both Flo, Dopai, and other Radiants I talked to all agree that if you're going to be playing the Sentinel and you really want to give value to your team, you might as well be playing Killjoy or Cypher, depending on the map. Now, there is a little bit of good news here. With the buff to Chamber, a lot of people are playing him. Heck, I'm not a Chamber main, and I still wanted to try him out. He's still inherently a little bit more of a fun agent, and it goes to show how badly he was originally nerfed for him to fall off of the pick rate board like crazy. With all that being said, I think that the buffs are enough to throw him a slight lifeline, but it's not enough to keep him afloat. People have grabbed it, and sure enough, they're playing it, which will give us stats. It'll give Riot stats to see win rates across the rank, accuracy, play styles, what picks on maps, win rates on specific maps. The amount of data that Riot will have on their backend is insane, and the amount of data we'll get is still also solid, right? Data on pick rate and win rate across the different ranks in the next coming weeks, especially in the next months, are going to be huge, and we're going to be able to better understand where Chamber is truly at. For now, I can 100% agree that it's not going to be meta changing. It's not enough to be meta changing. It's more enough to allow Chamber mains with fantastic aim to stand a chance, and that's about it. I saw a comment on YouTube that said they killed my boy so bad and now they're applying a band-aid. And that kind of, it is what it is. It is a band-aid fix. And I think that the problem lies again in the inherent design of Chamber from the start. The original nerfs, that's the problem, is Riot tends to do this a lot. Like, for example, a whole separate video that I am going to make, guess that's a little bit of a spoiler, is to do with Astra. And it's this tendency for Riot to, when something is broken, let it loose for too long and then squeeze it until it's dead. They suffocate it. That's kind of what happens consistently across the balance change board, and it just kind of sucks for them to then not touch it or leave something niche. And in this case, that's where Chamber suffers the most. So I'm going to use the Astra example a little without getting into too much detail. They did over nerf Astra originally when she was too strong, but since Astra is at least niche and has abilities that are unique to certain situations, as well as team comps and team coordination, it does allow her to float a little bit on her own, at least a little bit. Now, again, she's a whole different topic. I have a lot of thoughts on Astra, but I hope you get what I mean. She has some situational moments. Chamber's pretty selfish. Other than his one trip, he is extraordinarily selfish, meaning that he doesn't have that situational movement, right? He doesn't have a situational pick, right? Like in this 1v3 clutch that you're seeing in the background, I was able to play a little bit of a smart move here, outsmart the opponents a little, but the entire movement from start to finish on that clip is selfish. The entire thing. I had nothing to give my team. And you might call duelists selfish, right? You can call duelists extremely selfish, but even then, they create a lot of space. They're moving into a site a lot of the times. Chamber is still decent at defending, especially with the TP, especially with the ultimate that slows people, with the trip. It's not bad, but there's just so many other options. Minute you move to defending, that's where the Cypher and Killjoy end up shining, right? If you're really playing Chamber for the strengths of defending, why aren't you playing Cypher or Killjoy? And that's the simplest way to put it. I think from any rank, if you're listening to me right now, the minute I say that, you're like, that's true, right? And then the flip side, if you're attacking, if you're playing him like a duelist, then why aren't you playing literally any other duelist? Literally, I think every other duelist is better than Chamber. I'm almost certain, because at least they have that niche of creating space and not only playing selfish, where Chamber's stuck in this little loop where he's either going to be very strong at defending to put him up against the other Sentinels, which right now he's way below, or he has to be strong enough to hold himself almost like a duelist and have that versatility, which was also weakened too much. You might as well be playing anyone else, which leads us to the back end of the video. What the heck is Riot going to do to even give him a chance? Because I am predicting another buff is on the horizon. Now, again, we got to wait for stats, but I'm predicting it is going to happen. I'm predicting it's gonna happen. It's time to double down on his Sentinel role, allowing him to just continuously hold spaces a lot stronger to hopefully be in the same league as Killjoy and Cypher. Maybe it's giving him another trip back. Maybe it's expanding or reworking an ability. But whatever it is, it has to be pretty brutal. Why? Because the next agent is a Sentinel, meaning Chamber is going to have yet another agent to compete against, which is a huge issue on Riot's part. It could completely a new Sentinel that rivals Killjoy and Cypher, because while he's still currently pretty much at the bottom, once that new Sentinel comes through, he might be sinking a lot deeper.